Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Forgiveness of $400 billion in student debt is now in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, justices in Washington heard arguments for both sides of President Biden's loan forgiveness plan. And here in San Diego, those who are most impacted had something to say as well. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has some of their stories.
Annie Choi is serving up coffee at the BCB Cafe here on the campus of San Diego State University. It's her part-time job while she carries a course load of 22 units this semester working on a business degree. She admits she's stressed about finances and student loans coming from a middle-class Orange County family.
I feel like the middle class is such like an awkward space between like lower and upper, especially because I don't get like as much aid as I need, and I'm like literally working a minimum wage job that doesn't like provide as much as I need it to.
This spring semester, Choi paid $4,000 in tuition and is paying $2,000 a month in rent. Like many other students here at SDSU, she relies on financial aid and loans. And like many of these students, she's also qualified for the Biden loan forgiveness, up to $20,000.
I pay taxes, and I feel like that should like go towards my student loans. And if the president is just like trying to help us out, I think that he should be able to.
Amarani Calderon and Jansley Flores are just getting started on their college journey. They are juniors at the Price High School for students from low-income families, looking to become the first in their family to attend college. Today, they join their classmates in taking a tour of San Diego State. Both have big plans for their careers.
I like to be a neonatal surgeon, so work on babies after they're born.
Well, I was looking at like medical technician or like an anesthesiologist.
That could eventually cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition once they graduate from high school next year. For now, they want the Supreme Court to hear their arguments.
Well, I don't think you should have to pay to go to school to pursue a career and be something in life where you want to give back to your community.
I would tell them to think more about what the students might be dealing with or like in their personal lives. So like everyone has a different story, everyone's going through different things and different struggles.
The California State University system has supported the Biden forgiveness plan from the beginning for students in need at all its campuses. In an online statement, CSU Interim Chancellor Jolene Coaster said, with even less debt, these students and our recent alumni will be better positioned to strengthen the California workforce and communities throughout the state as they pursue their professional and personal dreams. We will continue to work with our federal leaders to advance this effort. And Annie Choi will continue working part-time at the cafe, hoping those federal leaders are able to keep their promise to help her. MG Perez, KPBS News.
The Biden administration might have an uphill battle with a conservative majority at the Supreme Court. Jessica Schneider updates us on the action inside the courtroom and out.
Big stakes for more than 40 million student loan borrowers as the Supreme Court decides whether a program eliminating up to $20,000 in debt per borrower can go into effect.
To provide a measure of loan forgiveness to ensure that this unprecedented pandemic does not leave borrowers worse off in relation to their student loans.
The Biden administration is defending their student loan forgiveness program, arguing that it is necessary in the wake of the COVID pandemic. But the conservative justices repeatedly zeroed in on the program's $400 billion plus price tag to question whether the president, by way of his education secretary, has the power to enact this kind of relief.
I think most casual observers would say if you're going to give up that much amount of money, if you're going to affect the obligations of that many Americans on a subject that's of great controversy, they would think that's something for Congress to act on.
The Solicitor General responded that federal law allows for the Education Secretary to waive or modify loan obligations in the wake of an emergency, and the ongoing financial effects of the pandemic justifies the administration stepping in.
Without this critical relief for debtors, we are going to have a wave of default across the country with all of the negative consequences that has for borrowers. I think it is precisely the type of context where the executive should be able to implement those emergency powers.
The Supreme Court has repeatedly struck down programs implemented by the Biden administration under COVID, including the eviction moratorium and the testing or vaccine mandate for large employers. This student debt program uses the pandemic to justify forgiving $10,000 in federal loans for people making under $125,000 or $20,000 in loans for those with Pell Grants. About 20 million borrowers could see their remaining balances entirely wiped out. But Justice Neil Gorsuch asked whether that undermines basic fairness.
What I think they argue that is missing is cost to other persons in terms of fairness, for example, people who've paid their loans, people who don't have planned their lives around not seeking loans, and people who are not eligible for loans in the first place, and that $500 billion is being diverted to one group of favored persons over others.
And that was Jessica Schneider reporting. SDG&E says natural gas prices for March will continue to be somewhat back to normal. The utility says commodity prices that set the price for customers are down 83% from the prices that led to those huge bills in January. And the price to fill up your car, well, that's another story. AAA says prices continue to tick up now for 21 straight days. The average price for a gallon of regular in the San Diego market is now $4.84, and that is the highest since early December. The IRS has extended this year's tax deadline for individuals and businesses in San Diego County. KPBS reporter Melissa May explains why and tells us how it works.
San Diego County taxpayers are getting a reprieve of almost 6 months for filing their taxes. The deadline is now October 16th. The IRS is offering the extension to areas that were affected by the January flooding, as designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA.
Generally speaking, when there are disasters declared by FEMA, IRS takes its cue from that to provide tax relief in and around the disaster area and those affected by it. And that could be flooding, storms, anything you can think of all around our country.
The last time this happened was during the wildfires back in 2019.
For a lot of folks impacted or affected by the flooding or any disaster, that filing a tax return and doing those kinds of things might be secondary to getting things back together related to life, more important than just taking care of your tax business.
The extension is available for individuals and businesses with an IRS address of record located in the disaster area. Even if you are not affected by the flooding, but your IRS address falls within the disaster area, you can't take advantage of the tax extension. But Tolino says you should still file before that October deadline if you can.
If you know you're due a refund, for example, the way to get that refund is to file a tax return. So if you're ready to file and you have all your paperwork and you're looking for that refund, choose direct deposit with an e-filed return, in other words, paperless, and refunds in 3 weeks or less for most of those.
Tolino recommends double-checking your taxes to make sure there are no errors, because that can delay processing. To learn more about the tax extension deadline and anything related to filing your federal taxes, go to irs.gov. Melissa May, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Biden's student debt relief plan goes before the Supreme Court. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
After 3 years, California and San Diego counties' COVID-19 emergency orders are ending today. But that doesn't mean that the pandemic is over. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has a look at what's next.
It's been more than 3 years since San Diego County officials declared a state of emergency for COVID-19. It was announced in mid-February of 2020 out of an abundance of caution.
Really a proactive step of prevention and protection.
Soon after, the governor's stay-at-home order was issued along with California's state of emergency. That resulted in 74 executive orders and nearly 600 additional provisions that state officials say helped save thousands of lives.
There are a lot of regulations that were suspended as a result of the pandemic to allow us to move faster.
Scripps Health CEO Chris Van Gorder says hospitals have been able to keep up with demand thanks to those orders. They allowed for higher patient-to-staff ratios and the ability to quickly add extra bed space.
We could have had a real healthcare catastrophe had the government agencies not worked hand in hand with the healthcare providers.
Last week on Thursday, Scripps had 80 COVID patients admitted across the county. That's far from daily counts of more than 300 during surges. Van Gorder says it's time to end the state and local emergencies.
That fear and verge of panic that we saw 3 years ago is really gone. Our physicians, our nurses know how to take care of these patients.
California's Department of Public Health says of the nearly 600 provisions issued, just 27 are in place until March. Masking is still required in healthcare settings and long-term care facilities. State health officials say those orders are not tied to the pandemic emergency ending, and Van Gorder is waiting for more details.
There's probably a lot of people, including hospital employees, that are curious about that, and we'll wait and see what the state may decide to waive that when they waive, the healthcare emergency, or they may extend it.
The state and county have been winding down their pandemic responses. Long gone are the mass drive-up vaccination and testing sites. San Diego County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten has been leading the region's pandemic response.
We still have to do the same things that we've been doing for the last 3 years, now at a smaller scale, but who knows how the situation could change where we need to ramp up again.
Wooten says plans are in place should they need to scale up again, but she says the pandemic is manageable.
The cases are not as low as I would like to see them. They are between mid to 200s. So that is evidence that the virus is still circulating in the community, and we can't rest on our laurels and, oh, we're through this. The pandemic is not over.
The county is continuing to monitor COVID through San Diegans' wastewater, and recently the amount of virus has been going up.
Things are overall pretty darn good in San Diego County. The only issue that doesn't go in the right direction is the wastewater surveillance shows some uptick, but hospitalizations are way down.
Dr. Eric Topol from the Scripps Research Translational Institute isn't forecasting any substantive changes with the state and local pandemic emergencies going away. The virus has been producing new variants, but while things are relatively quiet, he would like to see investments in better vaccines.
We're not prepared, and we could be working on this, but we're not getting serious enough.
Topol and other health officials say COVID certainly isn't going away and could look similar to the flu, with vaccinations recommended every year. Topol says if we continue to have minor COVID waves, the virus could be considered endemic, but that's too early to say for sure.
It all depends on whether this virus can find a new path to get to hosts and hurt us, whether it's run its course. If it has run its course, as in all these recent variants that we've been through, then it will be in an endemic state.
The federal COVID emergency is set to end in early May. For all Californians, vaccines, testing, and treatments will still be available with no out-of-pocket costs for an additional 6 months. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The end of the COVID-19 emergency orders are part of the discussion on today's KPBS Midday Edition, and you can find it as a podcast on all major streaming platforms and at kpbs.org. Thunderous window-rattling booms have recently been heard and felt across San Diego. While military officials have not confirmed if they were behind the booms, a local aerodynamics engineering professor offers one possible explanation. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer has more.
Now, when an airplane starts flying supersonically, there's a very defined line of a shock wave, a shock cone, and you hear it much more clearly.
Joseph Katz is an aerospace engineering professor at San Diego State who uses a supersonic wind tunnel to test the aerodynamic properties of aircraft. Katz says that supersonic aircraft are likely suspects whenever shockwaves are felt and heard across San Diego County. Katz explains that a jet flying faster than sound will drag a cone of disturbed air behind it, which is one reason people from North County to the South Bay might experience the same intensity of shock versus the localized explosions often heard from Camp Pendleton.
If it's an explosion, then it decays with the distance, okay? If it's an airplane, then it's the same strength following through, but it's going to be a very narrow line when the airplane goes through. So it will follow the airplane flight path.
Military officials have not offered any explanation for the booms heard Friday or Monday, although a Marine Corps official said routine flight operations are conducted daily. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Today's rain will bring tomorrow's blooms, and that's exactly what's happening in Carlsbad as the flower fields prepare to open. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne gives us a sneak peek.
Rain and snow has taken over San Diego's coverage lately, but something else is blooming ahead. And that's Carlsbad's colorful flower fields.
Crop is right on schedule. You can see behind me the colors coming in fast. We've got 7 acres planted sequentially, so it starts down here on the north end and moves to the south.
Fred Clark is the general manager of the Carlsbad Flower Fields. He says preparations to get the flower fields blooming on time starts in September. And this year, he got some help from the weather.
The rain's been good to us, as has the cool temperatures. It's really brought on the ranunculus, and we have really thick stems. It's what we like.
Clark says the rain not only helped the farm save on water, but the plants really like it too.
Rainwater, of course, is the natural source of water for most plants. And when we use irrigation water, there's some minerals and salts in the water that accumulate over time. And so we really like the rain, and we've had excellent, beautiful rainfall this year. Welcome to the flower fields.
The flower fields open tomorrow and will stay open until Mother's Day in May. Tickets need to be purchased online in advance.
This farm in the middle of Carlsbad has an ocean view, the only one like it.
But if you do plan on visiting soon, don't expect to see the fields in full bloom just yet.
You have the breeze off the Pacific Ocean, the beautiful view, all the flowers. It's cleansing to your spirit and your soul, and it just rejuvenates you. And that's what happens when you come here, and so everybody needs that.
A full schedule of activities and events can be found on their website. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Many San Diegans have been to Lake Arrowhead, but have you seen it like this? A visitor sent up his drone to get a view of the snowy scene to our north. The mountains in San Bernardino County got hammered by the storms that moved through in recent days, leaving well over a foot of snow in some spots. County leaders say they'll need state and federal help to clear highways and neighborhood streets. Well, that storm system has moved on and is bringing problems to other parts of the country. Mike Valerio shows us more of the scene in San Bernardino County and beyond.
We're just out here on our own, and usually by now plows come by. It just seems like we're being forgotten about.
Hours turning into days. Entire mountain communities in San Bernardino County, California, snowed in as extreme winter weather lashes the West Coast.
I've only been waiting a short time. Other people have been waiting for 3 days.
Waiting to be escorted by state road crews along treacherous mountain roads with single lanes only open a few hours at a time.
We're running out of baby formula. We're just kind of up the creek right now.
San Bernardino is now under a state of emergency as county leaders ask for state and federal assistance to help them dig out.
I'm just going to say, you guys just stay home. Don't come up here, please.
In the mountains east of Sacramento, over to the Colorado Rockies, and as far south as Arizona and New Mexico, millions brace for more heavy snow through Wednesday. The same weather system that unleashed tornadoes over the central region Sunday marched through the northeast with high winds and snow.
We had like 70-degree weather almost the other week, and now it's again cold and it's
been all over the place.
New York City seeing just a few inches Tuesday. Other areas like Boston as many as 6 and creeping towards 8 in northern New England through Tuesday evening.
Snow's like building up on my face just being here.
Enough already.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
In Los Angeles, I'm Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
Now, more impacts coming up with regards to wind, wintry weather, and more wet weather. We will have a tendency to be a little bit warmer later on this week. I'll talk about those numbers coming up here in just a bit. Let's get to the snow. There are winter storm warnings out. And we're going to see some significant amounts as we talk about areas such as Mount Laguna. Now, the heaviest amounts of snow will be off toward the north toward the San Bernardino County mountains. But snow levels will be dropping here as we go through Wednesday from the morning into the evening time frame. And again, this is going to be impacting travel in a big way, as we've seen here with these more recent systems coming in, some huge impacts already. All right, talking about the wind, this is also an increase later on tonight from around midnight local time right into Wednesday. Westerly winds will be stretching their way in from the coast into the interior valleys, and even some higher winds. Again, winds can top 40, even 50 miles per hour. Locally, and then we're going to be talking about higher speeds into the mountainous terrain. Let's talk about the rain also approaching for tonight. Makes its move in. San Diego 52, Chula Vista down to 51. Mount Laguna, yeah, already snow. Snow levels down below you at 28, and that will persist as we go right into Wednesday. Again, you're under that winter storm warning. Core of the precipitation moving in overnight and then sliding through the area as we go through the first half of Wednesday. Chilly pocket of air. And we'll begin to dry things out from north to south as we go from Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening. High temperature 56. That's it. San Diego, so below those historical averages. Snowy and windy toward Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs. Tops off at 55. Thursday, we'll start to turn the corner here as we start to talk about some milder air and some quieter conditions pressing their way on in. Break it down for you here at the coast. Lots of wind and some rain. Could see again rainfall amounts topping a quarter, perhaps even a half an inch in some spots. Higher amounts in the foothills and then drying out and chilly Thursday, but a little bit milder, we should say, heading in toward the weekend. Still below those historical averages. Interior, similar situation. Worse of those conditions Wednesday. We'll see improvement here later on in the weekend. And then toward the mountainous terrain, big impacts with the wind and the snow as we go throughout the overnight into Wednesday. Gradually warming up slightly later on in the week. Along with that, some sunshine, and the desert's also looking at wind and rain on Wednesday, and then we'll see the sunshine returning later in the week. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
Another Padres star is planning to call San Diego home for a long time. This morning, Manny Machado made it official.
You know, obviously, with the contracts that we got with Bogey, myself, Toddy, hopefully Soto next. You know, I mean, it's great. We want to win.
Our full intent is to be right there at the end, and like we talk about, 1 year soon the baseball gods will smile on the San Diego Padres, and we will have a parade.
And there it is. That's Manny Machado speaking this morning. And the person who cuts the checks, team owner and chairman Peter Seidler. The team confirms that Machado is replacing his old mega contract with a new one that will pay $350 million over 11 seasons. Big spending has translated to a winning team for the Padres, with season tickets sold out for the upcoming season. And that starts on March 30th at Petco Park. Well, Microsoft is doubling down on AI technology with its newest update to Microsoft 11. It's putting its new AI-powered Bing on its taskbar, which has 500 million users every month. The company is hoping to expose the feature to more users in the future. Users had been complaining about the response of the AI chatbot, saying it's inaccurate to emotionally reactive. We've seen a handful of states ban the use of TikTok on government devices, and now the feds want to do the same. Cole Higgins tells us why one of the world's most popular social media apps is being scrutinized.
The powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee holding a hearing on the threat from China to national security.
We are living through one of the most dangerous periods in American foreign policy
in a generation.
The committee is also set to vote on a bill that would empower the Biden administration to impose a nationwide ban on the Chinese-owned social media app TikTok if the White House determines TikTok and its parent company, ByteDance, knowingly transferred TikTok's user data to any foreign person working for or under the influence of the Chinese government. Sanctions would be required if the Biden administration determines the companies helped the Chinese government engage in surveillance, hacking, and censorship or intelligence gathering, among other things.
I don't have TikTok on my phone. I think there is strong evidence that TikTok is working with the CCP and sharing that data.
TikTok says, quote, it would be unfortunate to censor millions of Americans and do so based not on actual intelligence, but on a basic misunderstanding of our corporate structure. Already, though, the White House telling federal agencies they have 30 days to remove TikTok from all government-issued devices. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson saying, quote, I can't believe that the United States, as the world's #1 superpower, is so afraid of a mobile phone application popular among young people. This shows a lack of confidence. Cole Higgins, KPBS News.
The English language is always changing, and our online behavior is one of the reasons why. Some of the new words added to dictionary.com come from our virtual lives. The website just added more than 300 new entries, and one of those is rage farming, when someone intentionally tries to provoke a political argument online. Another is pinkwashing, which refers to disingenuous support of the LGBTQ community. The senior director at dictionary.com says the new words are included because they've reached mainstream popularity. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon turns 50. NPR's Morning Edition reflects on the lasting impact of one of the top-selling albums of all time. And then on KPBS Midday Edition, they'll have a preview of the Arab Film Festival. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.